You're not behind. You just stopped choosing yourself. Look around. Everyone seems to be moving forward. Careers advancing. Relationships forming. Lives unfolding with purpose and direction. And you're still here. Still thinking. Still planning. Still waiting for the right moment that never seems to arrive. So you assume something must be wrong with you. You scroll through social media and see evidence everywhere. Former classmates buying homes, colleagues getting promoted, friends getting engaged. Everyone appears to have figured something out that you're still trying to understand. The algorithm feeds you success after success, milestone after milestone, until the weight of comparison becomes unbearable. That feeling of being behind settles into your chest like a stone, heavy, constant, undeniable. But here's what nobody tells you. That feeling rarely comes from actually being slow. It comes from stopping, not physically. Internally, at some point, without even realizing it, you post parts of yourself to stay safe. You stopped taking risks that mattered to you. You stopped expressing things that felt too honest. You stopped moving in directions that didn't come with guarantees. And while others kept moving messy, uncertain, imperfect, you stayed still. Still enough to start feeling left behind. But being behind is not a position. It's a perception. And that perception is shaped entirely by comparison. You don't feel behind when you're alone. You feel behind when you measure your inside against someone else's outside. Social timelines, career milestones, ages, achievements, labels, all of it creates the illusion that life is a race with a fixed schedule, with checkpoints you're supposed to hit at specific times. But life doesn't move forward in straight lines. It expands when you move truthfully and contracts when you don't. The reason you feel behind is not because you lack ability. It's because somewhere along the way, you learned to prioritize safety over movement. You learned to pause yourself, and that pause became a pattern. I actually saw me point being cautious felt smarter than being curious. Being prepared felt safer than being honest. Waiting felt more responsible than trying, so you waited. You told yourself you'd start once you felt ready. Once things made sense. Once the fear went away. Once you had more information. Once the path became clear. But readiness is not something you find waiting for you. It's something you build by moving. Fear doesn't disappear before action. It dissolves during action. And when you don't move, fear doesn't leave. It stays in charge. It grows. It convinces you that stillness is wisdom, that hesitation is prudence, that waiting is strategy. This is how the gap forms, not because others are faster or more talented, but because you stopped choosing yourself. Every time you ignore an impulse that matters, you don't just delay progress, you teach yourself that your instincts are not trustworthy. Over time, that erodes momentum completely. You begin to hesitate. Even when opportunities appear, you overthink. Simple decisions. You wait for clarity that never arrives because clarity comes from action, not contemplation. And then you look up and realize time has passed, months, years. That's when the feeling of being behind hits hardest. But here's the truth most people miss. The people you think are ahead are not always more capable than you. They are often just less self-censored. They moved while unsure. They acted before feeling ready. They accepted discomfort as part of growth rather than evidence of failure. You, on the other hand, learned to be careful with yourself. You managed your desires. You filtered your ambitions. You softened your edges. You made yourself smaller to fit into spaces that felt safe. And you thought that made you wiser. But it didn't make you wiser. It made you still. Feeling behind is often the cost of adaptation. You adapted to environments that rewarded conformity, to systems that valued predictability, to relationships that punished deviation. So you learned to slow down the parts of yourself that didn't fit, the parts that were too much, too different, too risky. But adaptation has a side effect. If you adapt for too long, you forget how to move freely. You forget what it feels like to act from instinct rather than strategy. Oh, forget that life is not something to be perfectly managed, but something to be lived. You don't feel behind because life passed you by. You feel behind because you've been living on pause. And the longer you stay paused, the louder comparison becomes. Comparison thrives in stillness. When you're moving, you don't have time to compare. When you're engaged, you don't measure. When you're aligned with your own direction, other people's timelines lose relevance. But when you're stopped, your mind looks outward, and it turns other people's progress into evidence against you. That's not clarity. That's self-betrayal disguised as realism. The solution is not to catch up. There is nothing to catch up to. The race you think you're losing doesn't exist. The solution is to move again, not fast, not dramatically, but earnestly. Movement doesn't mean changing everything overnight. It doesn't mean quitting your job or burning your life down. It means choosing one thing you stopped doing for yourself and allowing it back in. One step, one action, one expression of who you actually are beneath the layers of adaptation. The moment you move, the sense of being behind weakens, because movement restores authorship, and authorship is what makes time feel meaningful. You don't feel behind when you feel responsible for your direction. You feel behind when your life feels like something that happened to you rather than something you're creating. So, the question is not how far others have gone. The question is not whether you can still catch up. The real question is this: why did you stop? And what would happen if you let yourself move again, even imperfectly, even late, even without permission? Because the moment you choose yourself again, the race disappears. And so does the feeling of being behind.